Okay, good morning. Do we need to call roll?
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Chairman. Supervisor Stewart.
Here.
Supervisor Brophy-McGee.
Here.
Supervisor Lesko.
Here.
Supervisor Gallardo.
Here.
Chairman Galvin.
Here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here in person, and thank you for anyone watching online. We're calling this meeting to order, and this morning we have two meetings which deal with the public hearings and the adoption of final budgets for the county and the county special districts. At this meeting, we will convene public hearings and review presentations regarding the various budgets. At the conclusion of each presentation, I will ask the clerk if there are any speaker slips. You will be given 2 minutes to speak if so. At the conclusion of this meeting, we will convene a special meeting regarding an adoption of each of the budgets. I would now like to ask Mike McGee, Kirsten Prindle, and Jim Rounds to come forward for the presentation. At this time, we will now convene the public hearing for the Maricopa County budget. Thank you and good morning. And please identify yourselves before we get into it.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. I'm Mike McGee, Chief Financial Officer.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm Kirsten Prindle, Deputy Budget Director.
Jim Rounds, Economic and Public Policy Consultant for the county.
All right. Great. We'll go ahead and get started. Do we have the first slide? Oh, we have a video, I think. Yeah, we're going to start off with a budget video.
Maricopa County is the nation's fourth most populous county and one of the most fiscally responsible governments in the United States.
We're the largest government in the country without general obligation debt.
With a staff to population ratio of 3.08 to 1,000 residents, our organization runs efficiently.
People work hard for their money, and we need to make sure that their money is being used wisely.
We provide critical state-mandated services to Maricopa County's 4.5 million residents.
I have no doubt that this board will continue to take on those hard challenges and really be able to address and bring solutions to the people of Maricopa County.
The Board of Supervisors invested 50% of this upcoming year's budget into public safety.
My most important priority in every office I've served is public safety.
Included in that funding, pay increases for MCSO deputies and emergency dispatchers, and one-time bonuses for detention officers, which will help retain and fill positions that are necessary to keep our residents safe.
I just wanted to say that I was grateful to the board for the tens of millions of dollars that you are investing in the employees of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office.
The board is also investing in the infrastructure of our elections with a brand new state-of-the-art tabulation and elections facility.
I want Maricopa County to continue to be the envy of the nation as a well-run county and a well-run business.
Budget approval means funds are available for the services that residents need most, like public health, food inspections, building permits, job training and assistance, senior services, jail operations, criminal prosecution, outdoor recreation, library services, and so much more.
I'm just so grateful, very appreciative. It's amazing that you guys provide these programs that help people like that.
Our focus is getting you the services you need at a reasonable cost. Together, we're building a stronger Maricopa County.
I promise you that this board will continue to honor conservative principles and be a good steward of your tax dollars.
Great video.
Yeah, it's an excellent video.
Okay, thank you.
I want to give a big thanks to the communications team that put that video together. They did an excellent job. So I'm going to start off by referring back to our May 19th meeting where the Board of Supervisors adopted the FY 2026 tentative budget. Since then, we've continued to work on the budget to account for some final adjustments. Today, we are presenting the changes from the tentative budget to the proposed final budget. In the next two slides, I'll highlight some of the key changes and then turn it over to Kirsten to walk us through the rest. In his chairman's speech, Chairman Galvin asked us to prioritize improved compensation for sheriff's deputies, detention officers, and dispatch officers at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Over the last few months, our office worked with Human Resources and MCSO to finalize a compensation package. At the June 11th board meeting, the board approved detention incentive plans that resulted in a historic $30 million investment of retention bonuses for detention officers through fiscal year 2028. Today, I am pleased to announce that we finalized a compensation package with MCSO that results in a pay increase of 10 to 15% for deputies and ranked law enforcement positions. And it also includes a 5% to 10% increase for emergency operators, dispatchers, and related management positions. This is a significant investment by the Board of Supervisors. The actions taken by this board today will align the new salary ranges with those of local law enforcement agencies. It focuses the larger increases on lowering turnover rates in the deputy and dispatch positions. I want to point out that this compensation package is sustainable from a budget perspective. It ensures that we can pay for the increased costs from recurring revenues. It also keeps the county within the state's expenditure limit. Next slide. Today's budget also adds funding for MCSO to purchase a new Extradition airplane. This airplane will improve the safety and efficiency of MCSO's extradition operations. It increases passenger capacity, which allows for multiple pickups. The airplane flies at higher altitudes and longer ranges, and it also helps save money by reducing commercial travel.
Mike, I'm going to stop you there.
Yes.
I'm going to give a heads up to representatives from the Sheriff's Office that Supervisor Lesko has a specific question regarding this item.
Are we talking?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first, Mike, let me ask you, how much money are we spending on the Extradition airplane?
4.9 million.
Okay. And thank you. And Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask the Sheriff's Department to explain why they believe this is needed and why, you know, what is the status quo is not acceptable.
Good morning, Chairman Galvin and esteemed board members. I am Chief Paul Chagoy with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office and representing Sheriff Jerry Sheridan on behalf of the Sheriff's Office. Can you hear me okay?
No. I don't know if it's on. Yeah,
it's on.
Now it's on.
Good morning. I am Chief Paul Chagoya. I'm here to represent the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Jerry Sheridan. And thank you for giving us an opportunity. This aircraft replaces an existing aircraft, which is a 1978 Cessna. It is a plane which meets FAA requirements, but it is not a plane that is suitable for modern extraditions. Now, modern extraditions reduce the exposure to the public when we're transporting inmates, and that's what this plane is for, inmate transportation, a detention function. And so this aircraft will allow us to reduce staff fatigue as we are transporting inmates from various jurisdictions throughout the United States. I brought together my staff who actually run the air operation that are in charge of operating this airplane. And I want to give them an opportunity to also weigh in.
Good morning. My name's Ken Swingle. I'm a lieutenant and currently with the Extradition and Aviation divisions. This aircraft is going to be basically a game changer for us. Both the aircraft that we currently operate only have the capability of transporting 2 inmates. This one will exponentially increase that and be much more efficient. Less trips, more inmates moved.
Mr. Chair?
Supervisor Lesko.
Sir, how many inmates can it carry at one time? The new plane.
Operationally, we're looking probably right now at 7. There'll be some things we haven't had to deal with yet as far as having one of our staff members in the back because we have so many more people to be concerned about their safety and moving them. So I think optimally we would look at probably 6 to 7 inmates at a time as opposed to the 1 or 2 that we do currently use.
Supervisor Lesko.
And Mr. Chair and Sir, so do you how many inmates, you can only carry 2 in the current plane, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and I know that the sheriff testified about this when we did the tentative budget, but I've forgotten some of the details, so I apologize for that. But I guess what I'm trying to get the point is if we could explain to the public why we're spending almost $5 million on a new plane. Why is that better than using commercial airlines? And how many do we normally transfer 7 people at a time someplace? Do you drop them off at one location, 1 prisoner, and then go to the next place? Or I just need the public to know that this is a good investment.
Okay. So again, there'll be things that we have to work out that we haven't had to do yet. With only having the capability of moving 2, we can take people, drop them off, and then bring people back. So it'll be a little bit of a learning curve for us, but it will be much more efficient. And I'm sorry, what was the first part of that question?
Oh, how many, do you normally carry 7 people? Well, you can only carry 2 now.
2 now.
So I guess I'm asking, I don't know how extraditions of prisoners go. I would assume that 7 people don't go all at once to one location. Am I wrong about that?
Not at one time, but we would hit different places along the route and then reverse that coming backwards. And then cost-wise, when we're doing these extraditions commercially, they're last-minute trips, and they're expensive.
Okay.
So by having the ability to pre-plan this out, we can be a lot more efficient with our time and the number of trips, the hours that we're paying our deputies and our staff to do these trips.
Okay, so what you're saying is that their last-minute decisions, flying on a commercial plane might cost more than on this private plane, and you'll be able to schedule when your staff can be on duty to do it. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Supervisor Brophy-McGee.
Thank you. I understand the improvements to the process. I totally support that. My question would be from a monetary viewpoint. What were your extradition expenditures this past fiscal year? I mean, if you have that number, and what do you project them to be? I'm trying to figure out what toggles down, what might go up, and then introduce this fixed cost as a means to save.
Yeah, hi. Jim Prindeville, CFO for the Sheriff's Office. So the cost savings is not the overwhelming factor in going to this airplane. It's mainly the safety side of it. But there is a return on investment, but it's slow. It's probably 30 years to return the investment on this better airplane, this bigger airplane. But these planes last 45, 50 years, so we will see a return on investment eventually. But the safety factors of this thing are 3-pronged, actually. So one, we spread the people out on the plane. So right now, when we cram 2 inmates into this plane, they're literally breathing on the necks of the pilot and the flight tactical officer. So, and we've had, we bounce around in these little planes and we get a lot of sick inmates. So that's not always pleasant. The second thing is the safety to the public. I mean, when we had to go get Lori Vallow, she was up in Utah and the weather was terrible. We could not fly our plane up there. So we had to go with commercial trip, which created a whole public spectacle. We would have much rather been in a plane like this where it could fly above the weather and we could have gotten her quietly and safely and brought her back. And, the other safety is just, what the hell was the third one? Sorry. Anyways, so you can get the idea. We're you know, it's that plus the ability to go fly. We mainly go to California and Texas for most of our extradition trips. There are so many times when we could pick up 4, 5, 6 inmates, but instead we're flying back and forth 6 times. And that's where we get a lot of cost savings right there.
Thank you.
Supervisor Stewart.
Thank you, Chairman. Why, Jim, I'm sorry, why the decision to purchase versus lease?
The main reason on leasing is a weird market on airplanes. I mean, we could look into leasing, but we put a lot of wear and tear on these airplanes, and leases, we've not been able to find long enough term leases where it would be to our benefit. So we end up basically paying for the airplane 4 times over the course of a 40-year life of an airplane. So that's, we started to look at it, and it just didn't look like it was going to be fiscally responsible.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add one comment regarding the safety. This aircraft that we currently have, the 78 Cessna, is at its end of life. It is an older plane, and so while it does meet FAA standards, it's not equipped to do the work that we need it to do. As well, my earlier comment about the safety for the pilots and the staff that are manning these craft is that the more trips we have to take, the more fatigue that occurs, the more expense that we incur as well.
Supervisor Gardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, just a quick comment, or really a quick question. How often is the plane used? I know I've asked that question before in previous hearings, but how often do you see flights outside the state of Arizona?
Hi, good morning. Lindsay Smith, I'm the flight crew supervisor. And thank you so much for finally allowing us to make this purchase. Just to give you a little bit of background, and I'll answer your question. Sure. I just want you to know our 2 pilots that are dedicated fixed-wing pilots doing these extraditions are the hardest working guys in aviation. Our whole unit is very dedicated, but these 2 individuals fly constantly. So to get to your question, they are taking trips 4 and 5 days a week. They work very long hours and are moving inmates constantly all across the states. So this plane will be put to use every week. Depending on the number of trips will be dependent on the number of inmates. But talking about efficiency with this plane, it's going to allow us to pick up multiple inmates. So whether it's 6 or 7, that is what this plane will allow us to do versus 1 or 2, because it has a infinite cabin capability. So that means it allows us to move those seats around and configure it the way we need to. It's bigger. It allows us to create that gap between our crew, right, between our pilots up front, which we don't have that now. It's a very, very small plane. It's antiquated. We can't move it around. We can't create that distance for that safety, right? But if we have inmates in various parts of California, which now we can pick up an inmate in LA and then have one right on the border of Oregon, that's 2 different trips, right? So now we have to tie up our crew for an entire week, where now we can take a trip in New Mexico, hit both of those in California, and then wait, we just got a call for a last-minute trip. Now we've taken all of those in 2 or 3 days, and now we still have availability for another day. So this is going to be not only much safer, but much more efficient for the county. The fuel alone in our older airplane costs $3 more a gallon because it's a different type of fuel. It's a low lead avgas fuel. This is more efficient. So just alone per gallon is going to save the county $3. It has de-icing, which our current plane doesn't because it's 1978. So your pilots are safer in the air. They're flying above weather. They have much higher grade avionics package that's going to help them navigate safer. So all around, your crew is safer, the efficiency of this plane, and having the ability to take multiple trips a week that you're not paying commercial for, or sending the fixed crew out multiple times and not paying for all of these trips with travel and everything else is really going to be a cost savings and have our fixed wing crew rest.
Okay.
And overall really benefit us, I think, as an agency and as a county.
Thank you. Madam Vice Chair.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, just real briefly, very supportive of this. This has been an ongoing discussion every budget year. It seems to be an issue to come to the table and really address the air travel that the Sheriff's Office is required to do. I think it's time. That's why I'm supportive of it. The safety factor is, to me, number one. I mean, I'm sorry, it is. You can't put a price tag on safety, particularly when you have detention officers there. And I mean, the idea of having someone right behind you and just, bad things go to my mind here thinking. So nonetheless, I'm very supportive of it. I think it is about time. It is a hefty price tag, but at the end of the day, to me, it's about safety. It is something that is used almost daily by the Sheriff's Office. So I think this is time for us to be able to say, hey, we have the resources. Let's go ahead and take on this particular transportation need for the Sheriff's Office. Like I said, this is something Sheriff's Office has come multiple times during our budget discussions asking for this type of upgrade, I won't say upgrade, but replacement. The idea that we're now able to get something that's more efficient, something that is a little bit larger to deal with the needs of the Sheriff's Office, I think it's real important. So, Mr. Chairman, I am supportive of this item. I do thank the Sheriff's Office once again for the work they do to keeping our community safe.
Thank you, Steve. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, and appreciate the presentation, and thank you for bringing the safety factor into full relief with your description of the work your pilots do. That really helps me
Thank you, ma'am.
as I'm just a civilian. But my question is, what are you all going to do with the old airplane, the one that's end of useful life?
That would be a question for the chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Brophy-McGee, the original plan was to trade it in, but on that old of an airplane, Kodiak's not really looking to take one of those in. We could sell it on the secondary market, but I think the value of a plane like this is pretty low. It's around $100,000, maybe $200,000 at best. The other plan or the other possibility is that we could use it as a training plane when we're trying to get pilots their airtime and get them qualified to fly alongside their other pilots. That's a discussion we have not had yet with the budget office, but the plan when we asked for this airplane was to sell it and get rid of it. Because there is an additional cost in holding on to another plane.
Right.
You're going to have another hangar. You're going to have to do some maintenance on it, things like that. So the number one plan is to just sell it and get rid of it. We're just not sure how much money we could get for it.
And Mr. Chairman, follow up, County Manager, Budget Office. I can't remember how this was presented as a trade out for a much improved, newer asset, or?
It was presented that way, yes. And in the return on investment analysis that we did, this was like a $100,000 offset to the cost of the plane.
Thank you.
Supervisor Stewart.
Thank you. That's a great question, Supervisor Brophy-McGee. I'm comfortable with this purchase for all the reasons that you gave. Love to see us get out from the O&M of an older plane and probably get rid of it and sell it, see what we can get for it. We can use that $100K for something else for the office. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you. Okay, I want to thank my colleagues for the really great questions. As you can see, they really probe deep down on every single issue. No dollar is too small for consideration with this board, but one thing I've known over the last 4 years is that the Sheriff's Office has been repeatedly asking for a new airplane, and we heard some of the arguments that we heard today over the last few years, but I think Sheriff Sheridan did a really great job of making a compelling case that a new airplane must be purchased this year. And for me, when it comes down to it, it's really about public safety and also the safety of our employees at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, and you cannot put a price tag on the precious lives of the people that work there. So all 5 of us want them to be safe. And Mike, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll turn it over to Kirsten.
Thank you. This slide illustrates the shift of funding from contingency to the Sheriff's Office in the final adopted budget totaling $16.6 million. Overall, the total budget impact is 0 because we had all of this funding set aside in contingency and it was just a shift into the sheriff's budget. The first item is the $4.9 million to purchase the new airplane for extraditions. The other items listed are related to the employee compensation funding approved for law enforcement, dispatch, and detention. The law enforcement market adjustment totals $8.1 million, and the funding is split based on where the law enforcement positions are budgeted, and we provide funding for general and detention fund. The dispatch market adjustment totals $373,000, and all of those positions are in the general fund operating budget. The detention retention incentive payment is the cost for the first of 3 years of payments to the detention officers. The first year will be $2,500 to all detention officers, including ranked positions who have not received the sign-on bonus in fiscal year 26. The cost is budgeted as one time. The combined total tax rate in fiscal year 26 is 1.3481, which is an overall reduction from the fiscal year 25 tax rate. Over the past 5 years, the board has reduced the combined tax rate by almost 29 cents or 17.6%. This has resulted in a tax levy reduction of $19.4 million for existing property. In fiscal year 26, the county property tax rate is remaining flat. However, as property values increase the tax levy for existing property, owners will also see an increase. Some property owners may see a slight tax increase due to positive property value market adjustments in a growing economy. The board only controls the rate and does not control property values. Therefore, the board will be voting today on a property tax levy increase of $12.2 million or 1.8%. The additional funding was vital this year for the public safety investments made by the board that went towards employee compensation as discussed in the previous slides. In addition, with the jail tax going to the voters for approval next year, it was important to keep the county's tax rate flat to maintain consistency until we know the outcome of the vote. The county has continued to set the tax rate below the maximum allowable levy. In FY26, the primary property tax levy is $269.5 million below the maximum levy, and our tax rate is set 44 cents below the maximum allowable rate. This illustrates the board's continued dedication to conservatively setting the tax rate. Similar to last year, our office did some benchmarking to compare Maricopa County to other local governments in the state. On this slide, we compared the average property tax levy percent growth for fiscal years 21 through 25. Maricopa County had the second lowest property tax levy growth at 1.39%. Our property tax levy growth has primarily been attributed to new property, as we have been one of the fastest growing counties in the country. The chart on this slide compares the average staff per 1,000 residents from fiscal year 22 through 25. As you can see, Maricopa County has one of the lowest staff to population ratios at 3.3 employees per 1,000 residents. And I will say for this comparison, we did include the districts in order to properly align with how the other entities were presenting their position data. But as a reminder from the previous presentation, the FY26 Maricopa County only staff to population ratio is 3.08. This is the lowest staff to population ratio the county has had in recent years, going back to fiscal year 2010. That is the conclusion of our presentation on the Maricopa County final adopted budget. The final upcoming item on our budget calendar is the property tax levy adoption on Monday, August 18th. We would like to thank the chairman, the board members, and the county manager for their dedication and support this year finalizing the fiscal year 26 budget. I will now turn it over to Jim Rounds to provide the board an economic and policy briefing.
Kirsten, thank you. Supervisor Lesko has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and Kirsten. I was wondering if you could tell us what the impact of all of the ARPA American Rescue Plan Act funds that were pouring into our county and now have been stopped. What impact does that have on the budget? I mean, I'm a person that really cares about keeping taxes as low as possible. And my understanding is the last, 4 or 5 years, we've been just getting millions of dollars from the federal government that is now ending. So what impact does that have on our decisions?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Lesko, I will turn it over to our CFO because he has been kind of our ARPA czar at the county.
Okay, thank you.
ARPA czar. Yeah, so we've been viewing ARPA funding as one-time money and not recurring funding. And we have to have it all spent by December of 2026. And that's what we're working towards. We're also working on kind of a step-down plan on, providing not only what the successes are, where the outcomes, but to make sure we have enough information to make decisions on whether any of the services should continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really have to compliment the county, having done a lot of work in different local government positions. I have seen a tendency to want to budget those ARPA funds as ongoing and hope for the best. Well, so I think that was a conservative approach, and I know, again, from my recent service on the Valley-Wise Board, county was enormously helpful with behavioral health facilities that we needed. From a purist's standpoint, this is viewed as a tax increase, and thank you for acknowledging that. I wanted to make that point, but I also wanted to tag on to Supervisor Lesko's comment, and I know from working with her all those years in the legislature, she was one of the most conservative legislators. We keep taxes as low as we possibly can. So it was more a comment than a question. Thank you.
Anyone else?
The only thing I would say, thank you, Mr. Chairman, the only thing I'd say is that I mean, I've been here 10 years. I've seen this county operate and really been good stewards of the taxpayers. I'm a Democrat here. It's really been good stewards. We really have, particularly with the ARPA dollars as well. Really with the understanding, and we were really careful. I mean, we were all kind of watching them, different governments and how they were operating and putting out the money. We were real careful that we were spending the money in accordance to what was they were required to be used for. We wanted to be able to try to get out of the COVID pandemic and the aftermath for the most part of the COVID pandemic, but I really am pleased on how the county has moved forward in how we dealt with the ARPA dollars, where we made sure they were used appropriately in the right areas where they were needed the most. So I'm very comfortable with how we have come from point A to point B. Fourth largest county in the country. I believe we're still the fourth largest county in the country. We are growing by leaps and bounds every day. And with growth comes responsibility. And this county, this board has really stepped up and really took on many of the challenges, and we did it responsibly. We really did. We took on those responsibilities, took on the needs, taking on the growth. And I really do believe that this board has really proven to have the leadership in dealing with unattended issues, growth within the county, and really did it, and really have done it fiscally responsibly. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Steve, thank you. Supervisor Lesko.
Thank you. My question is, could we have cut the tax rate more and still given the sheriff's officers and the detention officers the pay raise to meet market ranges?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Lesko, no, we could have not cut the tax rate and been able to give MCSO the pay raises that we did have in the budget. We tried to start building the budget with the truth in taxation rate. It was the guidelines adopted by the board, and that is how we started building the budget. But one of the concerns that we've had at the county that I believe Jim Rounds will touch on as well, and that we had numerous conversations with him, is that we could not rely as much on our state shared sales tax revenue because our growth has significantly declined. That had been one of our largest revenue sources and continues to be at the county, but that growth we've been experiencing the past couple of years where we have been able to cut the tax rate has slowed. And so we worked to see, you know, how far could we push it while still remaining conservative and not getting to a place where the county reached a structural imbalance. Do we have any other revenue sources that we can rely on? We looked at, you know, every department, well, not every, but departments will bring in some general fund revenues as well. So we looked for increases there. But the only way to give MCSO these pay raises was to keep our property tax rate flat.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. If you don't know offhand, that's okay. But have sheriff's office employees been getting raises, let's say over the last 10 or 12 years? Have they been intermittent, or have they not had a raise in quite a while?
Mr. Chairman, they've received pay for performance along with every other county employee over the last several years. There was a period when we did not receive a pay for performance, you know, at the beginning of the pandemic. But yeah, they've received pay for performance adjustments. They've also received some other adjustments as well. Kirsten, do you have any details on that?
Mr. Chairman, in fiscal year, it was fiscal year 22 or 23, we did do some market adjustments for law enforcement and detention officers. At a time when, again, the county was bringing in significant sales tax revenue, but the magnitude is not at the level that we have been able to do between the market adjustments and the bonuses that the board has approved.
And so that's my second question. My follow-up when we talk about magnitude is, as I understand it, this is probably the most significant pay increase in terms of salary for our law enforcement officials in probably at least 10 years?
At least.
Maybe longer?
Longer, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I did confer with the Human Resources Department, and they estimate 15 years.
15 years, that's significant. And then also, there's 3 different components to the tax rate that the board considers. So we are planning or considering cutting the overall tax rate, as I understand it, for the 5th consecutive year in a row.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Madam Vice Chair.
Just as a comment from my years looking at different budgets, you might recall my first question when I sat in on my first formal budget hearing is I was expressing a concern. I think we overshot with the cuts. And this is very comforting. And I think the principles that you outlined, that we treated ARPA as one time, that we anticipated, if not exactly on the mark, the slowed growth in state shared revenues. And then we really took our priorities and and held them up to the microscope and figured out what we needed to do. And Mr. Chairman, I'm going to give you credit. This was your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Teamwork. Okay, Jim.
Mr. Chairman, supervisors, it's great to see so many friendly faces, some from legislative days, some from others. Mr. Stewart, we're going to have to get to some coffee sometime. You're my supervisor, so it'd be good to do some brainstorming with you about our region. To build on the prior comment, I have a slide later, but when we were getting all that one-time money, my office and my staff were making a big deal out of this could cause quite a risk in future government entities' budgets because so much of it was going to be one time. We couldn't be adding $10 trillion to the national debt over a 4-year period and not have anything build up. And so we warned the state, we warned others, we even gave the state a number. The only entity that we're aware of in Arizona that actually took the time and we brainstormed with staff to calculate what the one-time money was and converted that into one-time uses was Maricopa County, the only one. And so I've tweeted this or X'd it or whatever a number of times because there's a role for the board to set the budget and do the other basic things, but also be a role model for others. And, you know, I'm sorry, Supervisor Lesko, as you know, I've always been doing analysis on how can we get the biggest bang for the buck for the taxpayer. So the same type of a thing, and been working with the county for almost 2 decades, directly or indirectly, doing some public policy work now. And this is one of the finest leadership groups and staff that I've worked with. And I don't say that very often. I'm usually hired to come in and criticize things and then help fix it. So it's always a privilege to say something positive. Just very brief, I think in August or September, sometime around that period, I'll be giving a longer economic presentation and there'll be more questions, so this is just a quickie. But just a few economic issues to talk about and then some things that we'll have to pay attention to moving forward. I like to do comparisons with other entities, and one that stood out to me was the Maricopa County's budget grew by about 5% a year over the last decade, you know, rounded. Arizona was around 7%. If the state followed what the county did, it would have almost $2 billion more in the bank right now, which means there would be discussions about funding some high ROI items at the state, like state land trust reform, all these other things that there's no money for. So that's a big difference. This is a great way of demonstrating how it's not just leadership in one area. If you continue that into other areas, you could be looking out for taxpayers all the same. I also like to take a look at nominal versus real, and when you back out inflation from a budget of 1.65%, it's actually a decline. There's always the only area where it's a more complicated, and Supervisor Brophy brought that up, is with real estate and property taxes, whether or not it's an increase in dollar or a percentage. But that's been managed very well, in my opinion. That's basically the same thing. It's just additional data. Last time, around this time last year, we were asked to work with staff and take a look at some other counties of similar size, mainly some large counties, and so this was a sample. And we're able to calculate that the spending per person within the county was very favorable compared to a lot of the others. Now, in some cases, different counties have different political influences. So like, for example, LA County, it's, I'm trying to think of the right words to explain what's been going on in LA County. Social services infrastructure has been out of control, large criminal justice system because of bad management. The county-run healthcare system is very poor. So when we do these comparisons, it's not necessarily apples to oranges, but sometimes it's a red apple to a green apple. So at least you could do some comparisons.
Supervisor Lesko.
Mr. Chair, and Jim, thank you for saying it might not be comparison. The one that really stood out to me was Miami-Dade, Florida. So it has a smaller population than Maricopa County, and they spent $4,509 per person versus Maricopa County at $835 a person. Is there any explanation for that? I mean, are they just big spenders, or do they have other things that they have to pay for that Maricopa County doesn't?
One of the bigger things with, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, one of the bigger things is the enterprise funds that pay for themselves, for some reason, get rolled into the general fund, it appears. And so some of their tourism, international trade, airport management gets added to the cost, but the population stays the same, so it throws the data off some. And that's the challenge with taking a look. It's difficult enough, even working on the forecasting and policy with Maricopa County, it's still so difficult to understand the entire budget. And then when you start to look at other states, it gets even more complicated. But for some context, how I like to make the apples to apples argument more red apples to red apples is even if the economic base is a little different, how has that base changed over the last decade? And for some context, over the last 10 years, the base for Maricopa County grew by 64%, which would make it number one out of these in terms of being conservative. If you do it on a per capita basis, because we've been growing more rapidly than the others, we're number one by a wider margin at only 50% growth versus a 64. So that's a way of normalizing it, at least to some extent. If you want to compare individual cost centers, individual budget items, you'd have to go in and try to figure out where they're located. But of everything that's in there, I wish that we put this one data point, which was the 10-year budget value per person growth. It's incredible.
Jim, you might know, or the county manager might know, when we look at Harris, Texas, Maricopa County is involved in so many different lines of business, as we say. I believe Harris County doesn't have as many lines of business as we do when we talk about comparison between red and green apples. Do either one of you know? Just quickly.
Mr. Chairman, that's my understanding as well, but Harris County also carries significant debt, and which is very different than Maricopa County.
Yep, thank you. Madam Vice Chair.
I think you answered it, Mr. Rounds. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In terms of the overlay of county services with the different cities and towns that are located in Maricopa County, there is an array, or a different array of public services provided in terms of just blanket public services versus this is unincorporated, we provide this, this is incorporated, so we only provide these specific things. Did you toggle, or do you understand my question? I hope so. And did you calibrate for that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. When you take a look at these things, the counties do have a different role in some cases, and the size of the counties vary considerably too. You take a look at a map of the counties across the country, you go back to the eastern states, and there might be 100 little squares within one of the states, and then you come here and Maricopa County is so large. It makes it more challenging, but it also gives you more opportunities. And what I've really enjoyed seeing lately is because you've done such a good job of managing the budget, being conservative with the forecasting, requiring that when we submit forecasts, we have to be 90% certain that we'll at least meet that forecast. Well, that forces us to be as conservative as possible as well. And so it's just been a great relationship because we've been on the same page. But overall, again, you're right, there are different services, but even with housing, dealing with unincorporated areas versus what the cities are doing. The county's already, Mr. Chairman has already been brainstorming with different folks on that, and we've been trying to figure out what would be the best public policy items for the county. And to me, this is just something that's been so long in coming, and that's taking that leadership position, but also getting into some of the public policy on these Maricopa County items themselves. This is going to be a really fun job. You're going to enjoy it.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Budgeted FTEs, we continue to see that go down, which is always good. Again, I always feel like there should be economies of scale. I know some of my colleagues out there, some of the academic economists say that it's the opposite. You have diseconomies of scale and you need larger budgets or larger number of FTEs as the budgets get larger, but it depends on how you operate. If you stick with, I want to be efficient, I want to be conservative with the forecast, I want to spend what we need to, and being careful with taxpayer dollars, if that's a priority, then you're not going to run into those situations.
County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to point out on that slide that there is a slight growth in the number of positions, and that growth is related to public safety positions. So the difference between FY25 and FY26 is public safety hires.
Thank you. But the ratio still goes down.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct because of the population growth in the county.
Yep, thank you.
Now, in terms of the risk going forward, the largest category is always the most at risk. The jail tax and the sales tax, they're forecasted together with other minor adjustments, so you tend to see similar rates of growth. We're probably going to see that dampening a little bit because of the next slide that I'll show you. Vehicle license tax collections can be more volatile, and that's more challenging. What do you do when something... I forecasted pretty much every revenue at the state level. Sales tax is the most stable, and even that's difficult to get right when you're at those inflection points, like when you're turning into a downturn. Even if it might be something mild, it's still hard to stay in front of that. But vehicle license tax will be more volatile. It kind of depends on tariff issues, things like that, because even if we have tariffs on foreign-made cars, when the competition's price goes up, then you're going to raise your price domestically. And so you end up seeing a lot of dynamic issues related to that. But I'm holding off full judgment on tariffs because I think part of it is, from an economist perspective, I don't like to see it, but I think that there's some strategy behind it as well. And we'll just have to wait and see what happens, which we'll know within the next 6 months probably how this may play out. So I mentioned tariffs. We did a report on Medicaid cuts because there was interest by the Arizona Chamber to find out what would happen if all the monies were cut. Now, there's inefficiencies in the system, I believe, significant inefficiencies, but the money's already been taken out of my wallet and out of everybody else's wallet and from the taxpayers already. Unless there's a plan of providing that money back to the state, we're really not going to see an economic benefit, but I'm hoping that'll be what comes of it, that if we do cut Medicaid, it's not cutting it all the way where we actually see closing of hospitals in Arizona and a lot of other things that are realistic economic risks, but I don't think it's going to be as extreme as people are thinking. Stagflation just means you have weak growth but higher inflation. That could come with the tariffs a bit. Now, what would that do? That would cause the Federal Reserve Board to be uncertain about what they're going to do, because if interest rates go up or inflation goes up, they behave a certain way. If there's changes in economic activity, they behave a certain way. Well, what if they're in conflict with one another? You end up with a board that just chooses to not do that much. And at some point, we may be entering a downturn where some rate cuts may be necessary, and we can cover those in more detail later at the next economic presentation. But something to keep an eye on. Housing, we talked about. Federal government spending. The big change between that adding $10 trillion to the national debt over 4 years and now being more conservative, that's a bit of a shock. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be more conservative with the spending, but there's a big change. But fortunately, you were already prepared for that. State force impacts, it's hard to tell. If anybody's worked with the state, even if you've been involved in the budget development process, if someone said, I'd give you $10 million if you could tell me exactly what the forecast is right now, no one would be able to do it because everything is in flux. Everything's changing. You never know exactly what's happening. You don't know if you have that extra 20 or 30 million for your programs. And I think right now there's a lot of state lawmakers that really don't like one another and they need a break from one another. And after they get the budget done, we're probably not going to see a lot of public policy items. I think everybody's going to say goodbye using whatever hand gesture that they feel is most appropriate. And then we'll come back and we'll be more efficient this next year. And clean air regulations. regulations. Don't want to talk about it in too much detail, but this is something that we were asked to look at. And there's an analysis. We just turned in the first draft. And it is shocking the extent that the Clean Air Act regulations, that there's a risk of them being tighter, will impact economic development within the county. In fact, this is, we work in economic development and do a lot of advising on this. This is my top 1 or 2 items now on economic development risks. I had no idea that so many of these potential business expansions were at risk, and so we really have to pay attention to it. But I hope that we'll end up giving you enough information to combine with your expertise and working with congressional delegation and others, that we can let people know that we need to balance these environmental issues with the economic issues. They can't just be done in isolation and arbitrarily. And that ends it for my piece.
Any questions from the board? Supervisor Stewart?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Jim. That was great. I'm curious to your opinion about housing and this influx of money into this category from the federal government. Do you think that has caused the product to inflate, and do you think that the tap being turned off will start to see some relief? We've got a lot of younger adults that are dying to get into housing, and so your thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Stewart, this is a topic where I had to modify my wording because I think on my normal speeches I use incompetency at the Federal Reserve Board level. The worst decisions have been made since the pandemic, and we went through a period where we had money that was free to access, it was abundant, it wasn't going in the right places, and then the board, the Federal Reserve Board tightened things up too much, and actually caused some bank problems, and then now we have this issue of inflation is in check in terms of the rate of growth, but until it goes negative, we're still paying higher prices. That's also lifted sales tax collections up some, but that was accounted for in prior budgets. So now we're at more normal rates of growth, and so that adjustment was done. That's why we saw such high rates at the state level and others at different times as well, but they were just spent on one-time issues. In fact, I think the state came up with a new term, which is ongoing one-time expenditures. So if you ever get in a budget jam, apparently it's appropriate to go ahead and change the name of something if you want and come up with a new definition. Housing, yes, we have a lot of investors that are out there. After the Great Recession, we had underproduction. We had the cities tighten up some of their regulations some, but the financial model for the home builders isn't working as well either. And so we're not seeing a lot of movement up. When you have a 2.5% mortgage, you're not going to see many people at the upper end upgrade, from a $750,000 home to a $1.25 million home, and then you free up, everybody moves up and you free up homes at the lower level. We need to figure out ways of paying for that. The state and the federal government think we can buy our way out of that. There's much better ways. One of them is if we simply allow some of the deteriorating areas like the old strip malls that are producing very little in property taxes because they're not generating much in revenue on sales. If we allow that property tax rate to freeze, meaning that it's not going to impact the city at all, that incentive would cause that a low-income housing project to be built at no cost to the taxpayer. If you take a look at all the potential areas in Greater Phoenix, I think between 10 and 20,000 residential units can be built just from this one provision, and it costs nothing. These are the things that we have to figure out. How can we reduce regulations that Mr. Chairman's been looking at? How can we deal with incentives that aren't an additional burden on taxpayers? There's a way to get out of this. We even had an idea for up in Flagstaff. NAU wanted to expand its number of dorms on its own property. Private sector businesses build it, and then they charge the dorm rent. And it would have been the same as, it would have pulled in 4,000 students that were living in rental housing, which is the same as building extra housing. They accused me of trying to argue for an expansion of NAU, even though there was no budget increase, and I have absolutely no authority to increase NAU's appropriation authority. I'm an economist and I'm a consultant, so I have no ability to do that. But there sometimes are challenges to some of these good public policy measures, and these are some of the things that we can talk about going forward, because we'll need some champions. We'll need that occasional supervisor to be that wingman, so to speak, on a project, or maybe bring something up as a leader and then monitor it. And that's what's exciting, because your staff have been very interested in this and working with your county manager. It's just, we've had brilliant discussions.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Jim, that was great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Do we now move on? Do we have to, is this the part where we recess as the board and go as a special district? Okay. Okay. Do we have any speaker forms for any items today?
Chairman, as of right now, I have one speaker form. This person wishes to speak on item number 4.
Which is?
Which is the library.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we will now recess as the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors and convene as the directors of the various county improvement districts and convene the public hearing for all the districts and their respective budgets. Madam Clerk, I already asked you about the speaker slips, so let's move on to the next agenda item. Do I have to read the next one?
For number 2, Chairman, for the improvement district.
I read that.
I'm sorry.
Okay, right. Yeah, just for number 4. I think we're ready to roll. Okay, thank you.
The flood control district's final budget is $105.1 million with no changes from the tentative budget. As a reminder, the proposed tax rate of 0.1428 is lower than the prior year rate of 0.1470, which is a 3% decrease. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We will adjourn as the Board of Directors of the County Improvement Districts. Oh, I'm sorry. So that was flood control. So I had to read that one, right? Okay. So now we will adjourn as the Flood Control District and convene as the Library District Board of Directors and convene the public hearing regarding the Library District budget. Kirsten will do the presentation, and then we'll do the speaker for public comment.
The library district's final budget is $49 million with no changes from the tentative budget. The proposed tax rate of 0.0462 is lower than the prior year tax rate of 0.047, which is a 1.7% decrease. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, Madam Clerk, please call up the speaker for public comment.
Thank you, Chairman. We have one speaker form from Mr. Matt Sanders and wishes to speak in favor on item number 4.
Sir, welcome. Thank you. I just want to let you know you have 2 minutes to speak, and as I believe the timer is over there, she'll be holding it up for you to see.
Okay. I would like to take this time to thank the public libraries of Maricopa County for their service to the public and to stress to the board my appreciation for everything that they do, ranging from allowing access to the internet, checking out books, providing educational classes, and even simply acting as shelter from the heat for our most vulnerable populations. It is because of my deep appreciation for libraries that I'm deeply disturbed by the, I would go so far as to say, smear campaigns being run by cynical political opportunists who do not represent the greater interests of their alleged communities. I'm, of course, talking about news coming out of Queen Creek regarding parental consent forms and removal of books from the collection. I'm sure they've made very scary sounding arguments about pornography being distributed to children at libraries, but I believe it is an insult to your intelligence that they think you'll even believe that for a second. Our public libraries are staffed by kind and compassionate public servants who are experts in childhood development and kids' literature. I would trust them over political partisans who can't even be bothered to go to the library. I consider what they want unpatriotic government overreach and censorship. Parental choice sounds nice, but I have to stress that parents have always had a choice. Forcing the government and government employees to police what children read is the most egregious example of a literal nanny state that I can think of. I think a far better solution to the concerns of these overprotective soccer moms is for them to actually parent their children and have conversations centered in mutual trust about what their children read, or even better, go to the library together. Thank you for your time. In short, libraries rule, censorship drools. Rock on.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Madam Clerk, just to double check, any other speaker slips for this item?
Chairman, no other speaker slips on this item.
Okay, so we are done with the library district. We will adjourn as the library district and convene as the Stadium District Board of Directors and convene the public hearing regarding the Stadium District budget. Madam Clerk, as I assume there are no speaker slips for this item.
Chairman, no speaker forms on this item.
Okay, Kirsten, please proceed with the presentation on the Stadium District.
The Stadium District's final budget is $9.8 million with no changes from the tentative budget. Thank you.
Okay, quick question for you. What is going into the budget for $9.8 million for the Stadium District from the county's perspective?
Mr. Chairman, the primary expense out of the Stadium District budget is the pass-through funding from the rental car fees that go to the Arizona Sports and Tourism Authority.
Great, thank you. County Manager?
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, is it a 9.8 or 9.75?
Mr. Chairman, County Manager, I rounded up. It is 9.75.
Thank you. Can't be too technical, right? Okay, we will now adjourn as the Stadium District and reconvene as the Board of Supervisors to consider item number 6, Maricopa County Truth and Taxation. Is there a motion for this item which will require a roll call vote?
Mr. Chairman,
Madam Vice Chair.
I move that we approve the proposed primary tax levy increase of $12,233,134 and direct the clerk of the board to send the appropriate documents to the Property Tax Oversight Commission.
Madam Vice Chair, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Supervisor Lesko, thank you. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Supervisor Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will we be making comments now or after?
I think after, when we do the vote in the next item.
Certainly, I have one question.
Yes.
I received a couple of emails, more than a couple, regarding contingency funding for the Elections Department for the Recorder's Office. Do we have that money set aside for the future? I think we were talking about doing some IT changes and things like that. Is that money set aside for the Recorder's Office? And I think they've also received a budget from the state as well of about $4 million if the governor signs the new budget. Can you fill me in on that real quick before we vote?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Stewart. The county has an unreserved contingency fund that, as items come up during the year, can be allocated by the board. And then there is currently, I believe, around $4.1 million in the Senate budget. And that budget, though, however, there's been some indication that the House may be taking a different look at it. So we are not sure right now what that budget looks like.
Thank you. And then on the contingency for the IT, is that just a movement of the money that we have allocated that's under the county budget? Then it would move to the recorder's budget? So it's just a...
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Stewart, yes. If there were board-approved movement of the unreserved contingency, it would just be movement of funds from the contingency to the recorder's budget.
So the money is there and we'll still be able to do our jobs?
Yes, we
All
do
right.
have unreserved contingency.
All right, thank you. With that question, I'll be voting yes to move forward with this budget. Thank you for all the hard work.
Okay.
Supervisor Brophy McGee.
I vote aye.
Supervisor Lesko.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to explain my vote.
Yes.
I've been in the state legislature for 9 years, and part of that I was the Senate Appropriations Chair, and we had a lot of hard times, quite frankly. I think it was 2009, we had to cut our state budget by 1/3. which as a percentage-wise was the greatest in the entire nation. And it was really some tough times. And we would usually argue this out and debate it out and adjourn at 5 a.m. the next morning. It was it was tough. Budgets were tough at the state legislature. In Congress, we would stay up all night, but never balance the budget. I don't think it's, I don't know how long, if it's, since it's been balanced. And so I'm very pleased, quite frankly, that at the county level, we're doing this in the middle of the morning, not in the middle of the night. And we seem to be very fiscally prudent. Maricopa County is really fiscally prudent compared to the other places I've been, at the state legislature and at the, for sure, more so fiscally prudent than at the federal level. And so I applaud the previous board members and the leadership here for their fiscal responsibility. I am a person that really hates raising taxes on anyone. I'm usually vote against tax increases. I've been very outspoken about it. And that's why I asked the question that I did, is could we have cut the tax rate more so that people's taxes, because of property valuations, wouldn't have gone up? And you said we couldn't have done it and given raises to the sheriff's officers and the detention officers that we did. And so that's a key point for me, because I believe government's #1 obligation is to protect the public. Over and above everything else, that's what government's #1 role is to protect the public. And we need to compensate our sheriff's department and our detention officers to the rates that are the market rates, so that we don't lose them to the cities. And so I want to thank the sheriff's department and the detention officers at the jails and all the law enforcement agencies for all of the hard work that they do. As you said, we haven't given raises and pay increases like this for 15 years to the sheriff's department at the rate we have. And it's a lot of money. And so with that, I will vote aye.
Supervisor Gallardo?
Aye.
Chairman Galvin?
I'm going to reserve my comments for our vote at the next item, but I am voting aye for this. So this meeting is adjourned, and we will proceed to our special meeting. Okay, we're now convening the special meeting. The board will now consider item #1, adoption of the Maricopa County fiscal year 2026 budget. Is there a motion for the fiscal year 2026 budget for Maricopa County?
Mr. Chairman,
Madam Vice Chair.
I move that we adopt the fiscal year 2026 Maricopa County budget in the amount of $121,599 by total appropriation for each department, fund, and appropriation unit group listed in the attached schedules. And this amount represents no change from the tentative budget. I further move that we adopt the 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2026 through 2030. And lastly, I move we approve the attached executive summary.
Thank you. Price is right.
Other than the dollar amounts, at least I got the billion part.
That's right. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and if you don't mind, I want to have some comments here. First of all, I want to thank my colleagues on the Board of Supervisors. This budget process is led by what is essentially the Board of Directors of a corporation of $4 billion, and it's the 5 of us working together over the last 6 months, which I think have done a terrific job, especially, Steve, since 3 of our colleagues are brand new to the board and have hit the ground running and have brought their considerable political and business experience to bear here and have just been an absolute pleasure for all of us to work with. And also want to thank Kirsten and Mike, our amazing budget team. You guys are just absolutely incredible. I'm impressed by you every single day, and I really enjoyed working with you as the chairman this year. on this entire process. And I really think that being chairman of the board just really gives you a peek into how hard everyone is working, but also how they look at every single budget item, every single dollar and cent. It's just really incredible. And I was always impressed by your readiness, your responsiveness, and your ability to answer all of the questions and to assist me as we're working on this process. And also on behalf of my team in District 2, Garth, Michelle, and Taylor, we also want to thank you. And also want to thank the county manager, who is our CEO, who just does an incredible job, as highlighted earlier through Jim Rounds and his presentation. But you also represent the thousands of employees that we have here in Maricopa County who literally right now are doing the work for the residents of Maricopa County. And so, Jen, thank you. And also want to particularly thank all of your assistant county managers who I know you work with really closely. I promised as chairman that we would be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and with this budget, we are showing how government can run efficiently and effectively to enhance public safety and promote economic prosperity. This budget ensures Maricopa County will not just weather the storm of economic uncertainty, but will thrive. And I'm pleased to be keeping a promise to improve compensation for the courageous and dedicated members of MCSO. And I want to take this moment to thank, first of all, Sheriff Sheridan, and I know he's not here today, but representatives of his office are here today, and please extend to him my heartfelt gratitude and thanks on behalf of this entire board, because I know that all 5 of us really enjoy working with Sheriff Sheridan. I also know that Chris Clark is here, and sir, you are advocating for all of the workers of the Sheriff's Office, and I just want everyone to know that you are a dedicated, caring individual who cares about his colleagues, and I really enjoyed working with you and listening to your input. But for me, over the last 4 years, making sure that we're taking care of people at the Sheriff's Office is of utmost importance. And as Supervisor Lesko just said earlier today, there's no price to pay for public safety, either for the people that we're representing and the people that you are sworn to serve and protect, but also for you in particular, that we want to make sure that you have all the resources you need to do your job and to stay safe. Half of our nearly $4 billion budget is dedicated to public safety. This now includes a 10% to 15% pay increase for deputies and ranked law enforcement, 5% to 10% increases for dispatch and emergency operators, and generous yet prudent retention bonuses for detention officers. This is an incredible moment for Maricopa County. This is an incredible moment for the Sheriff's Office. And what people need to hear today is what we discussed earlier. This is the largest pay increase for law enforcement officers in the county in 15 years. Absolutely incredible. I am proud that as the 4th largest county in the country, Maricopa County is the largest jurisdiction in America without general obligation debt. Every single year we pass a balanced budget. No gimmicks, no tricks, and we do it in the light of sunshine, as Supervisor Lesko just pointed out. And also, this commitment to fiscal responsibility is not new. We are grateful to our predecessors who really set this standard, and we are upholding that standard. And I'm proud to say that Maricopa County has cut the overall tax rate for 5 years in a row, and this is the 4th budget I'm voting on, which has included an overall tax rate cut in every single one of the 4 budgets. This budget also invests in parks and animal care and our elections, but ultimately it invests in the heart of our county and our residents, and all 5 of us are grateful to be serving all 4.5 million people. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We will recess the special meeting of the...
Can I make
Yeah,
a
of
statement?
course. Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that was well said. Again, I appreciate the leadership in Maricopa County and the Board of Supervisors. It is refreshing that Maricopa County has cut its overall tax rate, yet still was able to give significant pay raises to our law enforcement, to our sheriff's department, and is really the only county of its size to not have any general obligation debt. And so I think that is very positive, and am thankful again to the leadership and my fellow board members here in Maricopa County.
Thank you, Supervisor Lesko. Any other comments?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and echo your sentiments, and as well as Supervisor Lesko's. You know, I came from Chandler, Arizona, where we ran a very tight fiscal ship. So I expected to walk into Maricopa County and raise my eyebrow at a few things, but I've been pleasantly surprised, actually impressed by the work that your team has done, and to be able to execute against the chairman's initiatives from our first meeting to today, and to be able to, like, as Supervisor Lesko mentioned, cut taxes, give raises, continue to provide excellent service, and I can feel in the culture of the staff too that there is a commitment to customer service, and that is what you do in a well-run organization. Is you find economies of scale, and Maricopa County has done that, as you can see by the lower FTE per population. When many other cities would say, well, we've got more people, we need more people here, we went the other direction. So I want to commend staff for doing that. And we are a great example for other organizations to follow. A couple of things I want to point out, though, is that we do this with no debt, right? That's pretty remarkable considering you're lowering taxes, you're investing in capital improvement projects, et cetera. But I think the biggest thing to walk away from this for me is that this is a well-run, fiscally sound organization, and we will continue to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few comments. In January, I felt like I had been thrown in the deep end, and I didn't know how to swim. And I really wanted to thank the county manager and our budget gurus and our assistant county managers for making sure, and my wonderful staff, that I got pointed in the right direction and was able to go so quickly to work. I'm used to a new job blues, that's what I call it, curve, and I am proud to say that we overcame that pretty quickly. In my 26 years, going on 27 years of working in different government entities, I'm so used to the government doublespeak. I did not find that here. I simply did not. And I was astounded by that. The mention here has been made of no debt. Indeed, we have none, and I was able to deliver a message to the cities and towns that I represent that their public safety costs were going down because the pension debts were paid off. They were very grateful on the positive impact to their local budgets. I guess it's a long way of saying that Maricopa County walks its talk. And I am proud to be here. I am proud to serve with my colleagues, each of whom brings a very different and valuable and informed perspective to this board. And I'm looking forward to what the future brings. And it has been an honor to support and vote for this budget.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you, all of you. Okay, we will recess the special meeting of the Board of Supervisors and convene the special meeting for the county improvement districts. The board will now consider item number 2. Is there a motion for the fiscal year 2026 budget for the various improvement districts?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the fiscal year 2026 budgets for the county improvement districts per the fiscal year 2026 budget schedules entitled Direct Assessment Special Districts and Street Lighting Improvement Districts.
Madam Vice Chair, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Stewart. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. We will now adjourn the special meeting of the improvement districts and convene the special meeting for the flood control district. Is there a motion for the fiscal year 2026 budget for the flood control district?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the fiscal year 2026 budget for the flood control district in the amount of $105,079,604 by total appropriation for each fund and appropriation unit group. This amount represents no change from the tentative budget.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Stewart. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. We will now adjourn the special meeting for the flood control district and convene the special meeting for the library district. The board will now consider item number 4. Is there a motion for the fiscal year 2026 budget for the library district?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the fiscal year 2026 budget for the library district in the amount of $48,995,617 by total appropriation for each fund and appropriation unit group. This amount represents no change from the tentative budget.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Stewart. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We will now adjourn the special meeting for the Library District and convene the special meeting for the Stadium District. The board will now consider item number 5. Is there a motion for the fiscal year 2026 budget for the Stadium District?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the fiscal year 2026 budget for the Stadium District in the amount of $9,750,000 by total appropriation for each fund and appropriation unit group. Again, I note this amount represents no change from the tentative budget.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Stewart. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. We will now adjourn the special meeting for the Stadium District and reconvene the special meeting for the Board of Supervisors. After we take this vote, I'm going to ask for the 5 of us to take a photo together because this is a really big, momentous day for Maricopa County, the biggest vote we'll take all year. So I'm going to ask Jessie from our comms team if she's still here, Taylor from my office, and anyone from your office. I'm just going to ask Steve and Mark to stand behind Debbie, Kate, and myself, okay? So is there a motion to convene an executive session?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we convene in executive session.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. The meeting is adjourned. We'll now move to the Sullivan.